Good morning. It's good to greet you this morning on this day of the new normal, being the church in changing times. Our reading today came from 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 23 through chapter 6, verse 2b. I was always blessed by the opportunity to sit around the dinner table and listen to my father tell stories. And I remember him telling a story one time of two bootleggers back during the days of Prohibition. Business was good, but they were still having trouble making it from week to week. And one day, one of the bootleggers happened to be leafing through a mail order catalog, and he saw something that caught his eye. It was a counterfeit money machine. Now, the price was very reasonable, just a few bucks, and it was guaranteed, a lifetime guarantee to actually print money. Well, you can imagine what was going on in his head. He got pretty excited. He showed it to his buddy. He said, if we were to get this thing and just print one batch of money, that would be enough to help us get ahead. Once we get there, we'd be fine. And it will more than pay for itself. Well, they discussed it for a few moments, and then they decided they'd just go ahead and order the machine. And that's what they did. In a little while, a little over a week, the machine arrived, and they got pretty excited. They pulled the thing out of the package, and it looked almost new. When they got it set up, they decided that they would get it ready to print it. They wanted it to print $20 bills. That's the only denomination that they wanted it to print. And so they decided that they would have it print 1,000 $20 bills. But as the machine went to work, it just turned out these sheets of money. It was a thing of beauty to see happen. It just kept kicking out the sheet one after another. This was without a doubt one of the best ideas that either of them had ever had. Well, it wasn't long before the machine finished its task, and they began to take those sheets of money and they were going to hang them up for them to dry. And that's when they realized their problem. You see, the problem with the machine was it only printed one denomination. It only printed $12 bills. No matter what they did, no matter how they set the machine up, no matter what changes they made, it still only printed $12 bills. And that created a lot of problems for them, because now they had well over 1,000 counterfeit bills that were completely and totally useless. As they sat there looking at their money, one of the bootleggers said to the other, "Hey, we could take these bills up into the mountains. We could find one of them general stores way back in the hollers, and they wouldn't know any difference. And we could get them to change these $12 bills into legitimate money." Seemed like a pretty good idea, so they set out to find just the right place. If they could find the right candidate for this scam, they might just come out of this thing smelling like a rose. Took just about all day, but they finally found a little place tucked way back, far removed from civilization. When they went inside, they saw an old, crusty-looking fella back near the register. As they approached, he said, "Can I help you?" "Yes, sir," said one of the bootleggers. "Could you give us change for this $12 bill?" The man, without hesitation, said, "I sure can. How would you like it? 2 6s or 3 4s?" I can still see my father telling that story. Well, sometimes assumptions are problematic. Sometimes assumptions lead us down a path that we don't need to go. But there are times when assumptions help us understand things better. And such is the case with our text for today. At first glance, it seems that Paul is endorsing a way of life with which we disapprove, that of having and maintaining slaves. Certainly, this is a practice that all of God's people should find detestable and unacceptable. But there is an assumption that Paul is making here that we need not overlook. He is operating on the assumption that the slave master and the slave are followers of Christ. So you see, what Paul is doing in this text is, rather than endorsing slavery, he is giving us a reminder of how faith in Christ changes relationships. The true master of this story is the Lord. This further translates to the way in which we relate to one another in our lives. So consider these questions. Question 1, what assumptions in your life has Paul challenged you to reflect upon? What assumptions in your life has Paul challenged you to reflect upon? Question 2, who or what is your master, and how does that relationship reflect your faith in Christ? Who or what is your master, and how does that relationship reflect your faith in Christ? Question 3, I once heard of a Christian slave who said to his master, I am your slave, but you are not my master. In what ways do you need to appropriate those words as your own? I once heard of a Christian slave who said to his master, I am your slave, but you are not my master. In what ways do you need to appropriate those words as your own? Well, as with every day, I hope these questions are thought-provoking for you and that this has been a meaningful time as you head out for the day. I do hope you have a wonderful day being the church in changing times. I hope God will bless you so that you may be a blessing to others. Go in peace.